Today I'll be showing the difference between using Text.Replace and using if in order to fix spelling mistakes. In my column here, I want to fix this line that says office. I want that to be a capital O and two F's, and I want work from home and WFH to be the same. I also know that capital O is an acronym for office, so I want that to be replaced by office. The first thing I want to do is to get all the unique values in the status column in order to have one column with spelling mistakes and one column with the corrected versions. And to do that, I'll start by using table distinct to get all the unique values from this column, because in a real world case, I'd have multiple rows and I only want to look at the uniques. Getting rid of uniques is as simple as clicking remove duplicates, but I only want this column, so I'll delete the others. And I want this to be one step, because this is only useful as sort of an intermediary to know what I need to work on, because I'll use this to say what values I need to create a table with. So I combine these two steps into one by replacing the table with the result of the previous step. At this point, I can create a new table based on this, using this as a helper. And the easiest way to do that if you're in Power BI is to go under the Home tab and say Enter Data. And then I can add what my spelling mistakes are, which in this case is office and work from home, and then a capital O. So this is the old status and my new status. And actually I want that to be WFH, which should be replaced by the full text. And a quick disclaimer before I get further, the order that I enter these statuses is going to matter when I use Text.Replace, which you'll see why in a moment. And every time I do this, I forget that I already have that equal sign and I need to remove that. I can then use list zip to combine them into one, because that's just the way I prefer using list accumulate. You can also convert them into a list of records, and then you can refer to old status as that column, but this is just my preferred method. Now all that's left to do is using list accumulate. I want to transform the original status column instead of adding a new one. That would be simpler, but then I need to remove the original status column and then change the name of the new column, which I'd prefer not doing. So before getting further, I want to refer to the change type step so I know what I'm working on. I find that to be easier. So now I have the original table that I'll be changing. I wanted to transform the column of this table, where my transformation is then upon the status column. I want to apply a transformation to each step. Now it's being annoying and not giving me indentation. I want to use list accumulate, where my list is then list zip step, and my starter value is then the underscore, because that's the current value of my row. And then my function is, as always, state comma current, which goes towards, and I wanted to use Text.Replace. So I'm saying I am looking into the state, which is the underscore, which is the current value in the row that I'm iterating through in the outer loop. I want to say if I can find the current 0, actually that is curly brackets. If I can find that subtext, then I want to replace the subtext with the correct status. So when I find office here, I want to replace that with office. Then I need to have a closing curly bracket, which I already have there. And as you can quickly see here, something has messed up, but that's actually on purpose, because I want to show what can end up happening when you use Text.Replace. Because what it does is it loops through my old status, and then if it finds this subtext, it will replace that subtext with this value. And that's the intention of Text.Replace. So what's happening here is that it finds the capital O in office, and then it replaces that with office, which is what I told it to do. But the problem is when I have the text office, or when I fixed office and replaced that with office, well then it's going to find a capital O. And anytime it finds a capital O, it replaces that text with office. So that's why office ends up being office fizz, because the O in office is replaced by office. And you can fix this somewhat by being mindful of the order that you do things in. So for instance, if I had O at the top, which I could do like so. Actually, I don't know if I can add. I can do that. Okay. But this isn't going to solve all the problems. Which you'll see, it still finds the O in office and replaces it with office. So I still get the correctly spelled office being converted into office fizz. But because I'm now replacing office with a small o afterwards, that means office is converted into office, which is correct. So the order does matter when you use Text.Replace if the output of your replacement ends up being triggered and found in the old status. So in this specific case, using Text.Replace to fix spelling mistakes would be wrong, because you're going to end up with problems. This would most often happen if you're trying to fix acronyms like WFH. If you find that WFH elsewhere, that will also be replaced. And something like a capital O can be found multiple places. So in this specific case, this is the wrong solution to use. Instead, I'd want to use an if statement. The only difference for the if solution is that in the last step, where I use list accumulate and the text replace function, I'm instead going to use an if statement. I'll be deleting this line and then replacing it with an if statement. So I'll say if my state, that is the current value in the outer loop in the row here, if that is identical to my current, so my list, my first column, then I want to replace state with current 1, so the corrected status. Otherwise, I don't want to do anything, meaning that I want to return state. And then I have one too many parentheses because Text.Replace is a function and I use parentheses there. The big difference here is that Text.Replace will look for the subtext inside of the actual text. So it looks for the capital O inside of Office and then replaces the subset, that is the O, with the correct status. In Text.Replace, that can give some problems when you have acronyms especially, or if you have small text that can be found inside big text. For instance, home can be found within work from home, and Kansas can be found within Arkansas for some reason. When you use an if statement instead, I'm saying specifically is state exactly identical to the old status. So this is especially useful when you have few spelling mistakes, or like in this situation here where the capital O can be found elsewhere and I don't want to accidentally replace the capital O. With this method, of course, you need to be far more strict, because if I wrote like here, if I wrote office like this, then this would only be replaced by office. But maybe if I had office with a big O, so I only need to add an extra F, then that would not be caught. This means you'll end up with a lot more spelling mistakes, so a far longer table. One method to get around this would be to capitalize all the letters. So WFH with a capital W would then be the same as WFH with all capital letters. In this specific case, I'd want to use the if solution because I don't want my acronyms to affect the correct values. So I would use if instead of Text.Replace. If you can guarantee that you don't have acronyms or short words that can be found within larger words, again like Kansas and Arkansas, then you can use Text.Replace. So usually I'll probably use if just because it's far more strict here with being exactly equal. So yep,